My name is Carlton Cartwright, and I'm the Executive Director for Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. And we're here today at Riviera Beach Preparatory Achievement Academy. Today is February the 1st, 2023. And I have 3 of my students with me, 4 actually. Oh, look at that. Felix, Andre, Calbiana, and Keegan. Okay, and today, sir, what is your name, sir?
Steve White.
Okay, Mr. White, you and I have known each other for approximately somewhere between 2 or 3 decades.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right, and just like to get some background on you. Were you born here in Florida?
Born here in Florida in West Palm Beach, raised in Riviera Beach, presently live in Riviera Beach now.
Okay, all right. And what is your professional background? I believe you're an educator?
My professional background is as an educational consultant and trainer, which I've been doing since 1990. Also a book publisher, a company that I started about 15, 17 years ago as well. So I do a lot of work with teachers, social service agencies, students. Been a mentor for probably 30 plus years as well.
Okay. Have you ever worked, I'm curious, again with your background, have you worked within the system? And when I mean that, I mean Department of Juvenile Justice, Department of Children and Families. Have you ever provided services in those arenas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when, where, and what kind of services did you provide?
With the Department of Juvenile Justice, I've done several mentoring programs with them where I went in and worked with young men specifically that were either incarcerated or on probation, and basically just preparing them to make the transition so that they could be, successful young men. I also have a prison reentry program where I've gone into adult prisons and worked with young men incarcerated as well. And again, just preparing them for successful reentry back into society. Black male, I've been racially profiled as probably almost every black male that you talk to, and oftentimes black females as well.
Right.
But working with the mentoring program, working with a lot of young men, like I said, either in Department of Juvenile Justice or even those that are incarcerated, many of them know what it's like to be racially profiled. They've created certain negative stereotypes surrounding black people in general and black males in particular, and black males then become a victim of those stereotypes. So yeah, we are often profiled, and it can lead to some really bad situations. The educational system in Florida and throughout the country has failed black children, failed children of color, period. Because people don't understand, first of all, education means to induce that which is within, right? That's what the word means, the root of that word. So it's to bring out the genius that's inherent in all of our children. So has the educational system brought out the genius that's inherent in all of our children? No. If you look at the data, it shows that a lot of black children and brown children are not performing up to their ability. They're behind in reading, they're behind in math, and they're just falling behind. They have a disproportionate dropout rate, etc. Is it because they are not intellectually capable? No. I think it's because of the way the educational system is designed. It's not designed to bring out the genius in our children. And so, yeah, it has definitely failed our children. And the sad thing is that there's a lot of resistance to change. So even when you look at the data and realize that too many of our children are not performing up to their ability, we continue with the same practices, the same approach to education, and so we're not really changing the situation. I think that, when you know the history of black people, you look at them differently and you show them a different level of respect. I think it's important that black people need to know who they are, right? We need to know our own history. The general population, the society as a whole need to know our history so that there's a different way that we are viewed in this society. But it starts at home, so we've got to know our own history. Parents need to be able to pass that on to their children, build up their self-esteem, and I think that's going to have a big role as far as how we move forward. But if you still have a whole group of people who are denied the opportunity to reach their full potential because of white supremacist practices that are in place in this society, and until we acknowledge that those practices exist, then there's always going to be a real resistance to change, right? But we were always taught when it comes to history to know thyself. So we have to know who we are and what we're capable of. Well, history tells you who you are. It tells you what you're capable of, right? Because when you look back and you see what your people have already accomplished, then it lets you know that you're capable of doing that, at least if not greater things. So history gives you your identity. And so when our children particularly don't know their history, then it means that they really don't know who they are. And so when you don't know who you are, then that means that you can be victimized. It means that other people can define you and tell you who you are. And so one of the things about knowing our history is that was always the approach, right? To rob our ancestors, for instance, of their history and then impose on them somebody else's history, or what we used to call it, his story, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, you've got to know your history because it tells you who you are and what you're capable of. That is a form of PTSD, right? And so the first thing is that we have to acknowledge that, because oftentimes when we see the children and the people in the community that are experiencing violence firsthand, we don't even think about the impact that is having on them. You know, I've always said that if you live in neighborhoods where that violence is actually occurring, how it impacts you versus somebody who lives in a more exclusive neighborhood and all they do is read about it or watch it on the news, it's not having the same impact as children who actually see people being taken away in body bags, hear those shots and things of that nature, right? So
Right.
yes, first of all, so it does stress them. I think the other thing that we have to do as a community is acknowledge that there are times when we ourselves and our children or our family members, our loved ones, need some kind of professional help, you know, whether it's, you know, counseling, therapy, whatever the case may be. Because, you know, in the black community in particular, for years our culture was to a large extent to shun any kind of professional mental health, right? So we have to acknowledge that, first of all, people who are exposed to violence the way that you described it, they do suffer from PTSD. And I was saying that one of the things that has to happen, one is in the communities, we have to acknowledge that there are times when professional mental health support will help, whether it's, you know, seeing a counselor, a therapist, etc. I think we have to acknowledge that, because that's also been a problem. We've got to recognize that when someone is suffering, I guess you would say, from some effects of PTSD and they could use some mental health support, that we take away the stigma that's attached to that too, right? Because oftentimes, you know, we look at that as a negative thing, but when you need support, you need it, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we have to take away the stigma, and then, like you were saying or suggesting earlier, there has to be the availability and the accessibility of mental health counselors or therapists or places where people can go, where it's not cost prohibitive, they can afford it, and
Right.
and there's no stigma attached.
That's like affordable housing.
It's like affordable housing, which is almost now oxymoron, right? But yeah, it has to be affordable, and you've got to take away that stigma, because there's nothing wrong with seeking help if you need it, or if the family even recognizes that you need it. If parents are not healthy, then it's very hard for them to produce healthy children, okay? Mentally, physically, you know, spiritually, financially, whatever the case may be. So yeah, you've got to fix those things, because otherwise it becomes a generational problem.
Exactly.
What I would like to see is more emphasis put on helping our children. You know, I think that we've got to recognize that there is no future for us unless we really stop and take time to save our children. Right? They are under assault, really. You know, they're under assault. They have tremendous potential. You know, I wrote a book some years ago about helping black children reach their full potential.
Right.
And I talked about the fact that they have genius potential. So we've got to take the time to realize who our children are and what their potential is, and save them, because, you know, we always talk about they are the future. Well, they are. And, you know, we have no future if we don't do something to save our children. And so I'll close on this, and that is that no one can do everything, but everybody can do something.